Okay. We had a good workout last night, and guys are obviously enthusiastic and working hard, and so back at it. New week as always in college football, the way it is, and so looking forward to a good week of practice with our players, and visited with them about staying with what has got them to this point, which is being humble, unselfish, focused, discipline, and toughness. Very, very simple. And I feel that we've got enough maturity and leadership for our guys to stay focused and practiced hard and continue the things that have got us to this point. So it's really been that simple for us up to this point, and obviously watching a lot of tape, I should say, on TCU and moving forward.
How is the connection between Spencer Sanders and Tay Martin? Have you maybe even seen that grow in the last couple weeks?
It's gotten better just from a health standpoint. We've talked about this each week, that he's had his group of wide receivers now. This will be going in the third week where he's been able to practice with them consistently through the week and them not be out. And Tay's been with us, maybe 4 weeks now that he's been full speed. And so obviously it helps when they can practice full speed.
Yeah, I think back to the 2 touchdowns last week, and then the touchdown throw against Iowa State. Is there something different or something special you're seeing between Tay and Spencer specifically?
Well, Spencer has thrown that ball well, and our history, I guess maybe my history, I should say, with wide receivers is some of them have the ability to make that catch, the catches you're talking about. We've also had really, really good wide receivers that didn't have the natural gift to be able to catch that fade ball, as we term it. He has a good feel for that, where his body is and how he leans and then jumps up and takes it at the highest point. We've had guys that were good at it like him, and then we've had some other players that aren't as good at it. But those two seem to time up pretty well with that play.
Mike, you go back a ways. I've been here a long time. Up until Saturday, I've continued to say that Leslie O'Neal, John Washington, Mark Moore, that group that Pat had, and I remember them well, best defensive team I've ever seen. I changed my mind after Saturday, and I know this goes against the grain for you on telling these guys how great they are. But I don't know that I've seen a better defensive team at this school than the one you've got right now.
So the first one that you're referring to was when I was in high school, and I saw him when I would come to games. Back then, if you didn't come to a game, you didn't get to see it because there wasn't games on TV. So I had been to a few games as a high school prospect up here and watched those teams play. It's a different style of defense and a different game now than it was in '83 and '84. Considerably different. With everybody knows, I don't need to get into all that. So it's a different brand of football. This defense doesn't surprise me. I was surprised after the West Virginia game that we could play that well defensively against them there. So I will admit that. But they practice well. They like playing hard and competing, and they're a good defense. I mean, they're and I say this every week. I just hope they can continue on. But they're a good defense.
Do you ever get to a point where you feel like I don't have to worry? These guys are so consistent. They will carry it on. It would take somebody to physically beat them. They're not going to beat themselves.
I have confidence in them. I will say that. But I also know that, in this game, we're dealing with still young men that are 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Most of the guys that we have playing on defense are 22 or 23, so that helps. They just need to stay the course and continue to work the way they have to get to this point. That gives them the best chance to continue.
Mike, if you go back since Spencer became your starter, I know this is a subjective thing, but you guys haven't had what many people would look at as bad losses. Either games that you were favored to win and didn't win, or didn't play fantastic. How have you guys gotten to the point where you don't lose those type of games? If you're better, you're likely to go out and win.
Well, I think that if we go back to what my original plan was when when I was fortunate enough to get the head coaching job here, my goal was to put a team on the field that when our fans came to the game, home or away, or watched us on TV, that they knew that if we played well, we could win. And I think anything other than that is an unrealistic expectation for any athletic event, much less college football, that has a tremendous amount of parity at this time. College football has turned into NFL parity if you just look across the country. And so all we can ask our players to do is the things that I mentioned earlier in this press conference. And then if we take care of the football, don't give up big plays, and compete, we have a chance to win no matter who we play. And I think that the culture, and going on 18 years here now, that's one thing that we have in place that I don't concern myself with anymore. That's in place. Those things don't concern me anymore.
When you look at losses, though, last 4 times you played TCU, they've beaten you 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not saying all 3 are necessarily in that bad loss category, but is there something about their makeup that has made them a tough win for you
Well,
guys?
TCU has always been an athletic team, and they've been very stingy on defense for a number of years. We all know that. They've had a little different style of offense over the years. But when you look back at those games, we didn't satisfy a couple of areas that are important, which could be turnovers. We turned the ball over. And then last year, we struggled so bad to just function and move the football. We won the turnover margin, and we still couldn't do anything with it based on where we were at offensively. So these are always interesting games, and in watching the tape now, they obviously found a quarterback that I'm guessing is their starter now they're going to use, that played really, really well. And they played very inspired football in the last game, very inspired. And so that should help our players in preparation for them when they watch on tape and how well they played last Saturday.
What stood out about Morris on tape?
What's that?
The quarterback. What stood out about their quarterback on tape?
Well, he made a bunch of plays. He made athletic plays. He'd run the ball, he'd scramble around, find guys open, throw it down the field. I mean, I thought he played very athletic for his position, and he had a bunch of success.
You used the word inspired about their performance from the weekend. What does it tell you about a team that after 2 losses, coach leaves, and kind of the earth shakes, they came out and looked like that?
One thing that I've mentioned to you guys over the last few years, young people today, it's hard to predict what you're going to get week to week for a variety of reasons. And so if you go back and look at, I've looked at the Oklahoma game, looked at the Kansas State game, West Virginia game, and then as you progress through and get to Baylor, you'll see where 6 or 8 plays put them on the wrong side of the win-loss column. Wasn't the majority of the 70 plays of the game on one side of the ball or the other. It was these 6 to 8 plays allowed them to not win, in my opinion, versus the other 70 was pretty even. That's what I saw.
Mike, obviously Jerry Kill took over for Gary. You go way back with Jerry. What do you remember about that season in Midwest City with him?
Well, he was my high school biology teacher, junior biology. And so he and I have been able to stay in touch over the years. And, he's done a lot in his career and been a lot of places. But he's an old school, tough guy that I've always had a lot of respect for in what he's been able to accomplish. And so it's been fun to watch him bounce around in the things that he's done, partly because of some health conditions that he's had to change careers for a little bit. but he's been around a lot and very well respected in our profession and certainly by me. And I'm glad that good things are still happening to him.
What kind of teacher was he?
I don't know, because I wasn't as good a student as I should have been. So I was just waiting to get to 2:30 to get to football or baseball.
Yeah. And talking with some people from back in that day, he brought a lot to the team attitude-wise. It felt like he was kind of really good for the team, wasn't he?
Yes, motivator, no excuses. I don't want to hear about that. Just figure out a way to get it done. Very traditional, old school mentality.
What grade were you in high school? What grade?
What grade? I was a junior.
He wasn't much older than you guys, was he?
No. I think he was just getting into the profession, and I think, he left there, and I think he went to a small school in Kansas, maybe a junior college or something, or a smaller school in Kansas. And then before I knew it, he was a head coach. I think Pittsburgh State.
Yeah, he went to Pitt State from Midwest City.
Okay, so he went right there. Okay, as an assistant. Yeah, and then he worked his way up. Okay, so.
Health-wise, how did you come out of Morgantown? Obviously, Braden Cassidy, and then it looked like Devin got a shoulder late in that game. Health-wise, how are Devin Harper and Braden Cassidy? How are those guys?
I think we're in good shape, yeah. Cassidy will be a guy that will evaluate the middle of the week. He could be the one guy that we might not have, but everybody else is in pretty good shape.
A couple of years ago, you came out pretty strong for an 18 playoff. And I'm wondering, after the proposal included 12, if that would even be an improvement over 8. And I know they're still talking about it and dealing with it, but I never considered 12 as an alternative. I figured they'd just make it even, go to 8. And if they needed more than that, maybe even up to 16. Did you have enough, did you analyze that to know whether you thought that was a good idea to go to 12?
Well, since they've had these conversations, we've had other areas that are drastically changing college football with NIL and portal and all the different things. So there's a considerable amount of information to consider, and I think that this could be a very pivotal time, in my opinion, for college football. We have a good product right now, a really good product that's driving the television market. People love college football. So I'm a little concerned about whether we need to really fix something that's not broke, in my opinion. Now, the 8 team that I mentioned, 5-6 years ago, I still think it's the best concept, in my opinion, for everybody in college football, which is important. So the decisions that are made for college football are like decisions that are made for lawmakers. They should be able to try to satisfy and keep the majority happy. That's what we do. That's why we vote. I think the 8-team playoff allows all conference champions to be in, and then your conference is important. No, we don't have the discussion over which conferences are stronger than the others. If you win, you're in. And then it also allows at least one team from the lower level to get in so they know they have a shot. Because as it is right now, they do not have a shot. It's extremely difficult. Cincinnati may now have the best shot, right? But it's still difficult. So when you go to the 12 or even further, you're now treading water in academic calendars, dead week, finals week, bowl games, how many regular season games can you have, and potentially a number of games that could push right up there with an NFL schedule. And we still are working with amateur athletes. So I'm not sure that that's the answer right now based on what all's going on, because my academic schedule may not be the same as Stanford's. So is somebody going to play? Are we going to play each other in a playoff and we're in finals week and they're out of school? There's issues there. So I'm not saying I have the answers. I'm just saying that I think that we need to be careful because we have a big-time game right now that people in this country love to watch. I'd be careful about changing it too much.
Connecting the dots to your situation this year, an expanded playoff would essentially right now leave you as controlling your own destiny. And I know you're going to say,
right.
We got
no, I'm with you. I got it. I get it. Yeah.
If the way it is with 4, I think if you went out, you're still in pretty good shape, but you don't know you are. You know what I mean? So,
I understand. Yeah. Again, we have to try to make decisions for what would be the majority. So we could go back to the year that we went to the Fiesta Bowl. Okay? If they were deciding which two teams went and played for the national championship without a computer, if it was a committee, we would have been in. But before the season, we signed up for the system that was in place. And so people said, how upset are you? Well, I'd love to play in the game, but I signed up for that. And that's how it works. The computer spit me out as third. I don't know what to tell you. So, in a sense, we have to be careful about changing things, even though what you're saying is true. But there's other side effects or repercussions for the system you're wanting, or not saying you're wanting, or that you're talking about. And that could affect bowls. So let's just say that you're 23rd in the country, you win 8 games, and you're going to go to a bowl game. Is that bowl game still there if you're to an 8 or 12 team playoff, or is that bowl game history based on television, based on what people want to watch because of the playoffs? So there's, maybe this year for Oklahoma State, oh yeah, it could be beneficial, but maybe it couldn't be for whoever's 23rd in the country and going to the Liberty Bowl, whatever that might be. So there's a lot of things to weigh. I will say this. I think the decisions that need to be made by people that understand the profession, not people that aren't in our profession. That's my opinion.
Are you worried that's happening right now?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know who's making decisions. I really don't. I don't know who's making decisions on any of this stuff. Does anybody know who's making decisions? I don't know that we know that. I would just like those decisions to be made by people that are in the middle of it and could make the best decision for everybody involved. That's just my opinion on it.
Mike, back to Jerry Kill for just a minute. You were, as a quarterback, you were pretty ingrained with that group. How much can you tell, or how much do you think that Jerry pulled from Dick Evans, maybe from Ron Smith, who was a young up-and-coming coach at the time? How much do you think he pulled from that and took with him the rest of his career?
Oh, I would guess, with Coach Evans and his staff, they had been there forever. And I quit counting. At one time, they were 46 years in a row in the playoffs. I don't know what they are. I'm sure that's been stopped at some point. But so anybody that had coached there under those guys had to have taken things with them. There's been a number of head coaches come out of that group. And I'm sure – but Coach Kill's discipline and structure and toughness and things like that were he had that, I think, because when I remember him coaching, he had that. But that's what he would have got out of that organization with Coach Evans and his group.
When you saw that offense rolled out Saturday by TCU, how much of that do you think was Jerry Kill's influence? How much was Doug Meacham's influence?
Are you talking about against Baylor?
What they rolled out against Baylor?
Oh, I would say that that's 90% of that's going to be Meacham. Coach Kill's been a defensive guy, and I would guess that's Meacham and his staff are the ones that have put that together.
Mike, they're unveiling Barry's statue on Saturday before the game. He's doing these Heisman House commercials now. We're seeing a side of him we haven't seen. Was that ever a side of Barry Sanders that you guys
Of Barry?
Yeah.
What side are you seeing?
Sort of a fun, almost coming out of his shell side?
So, he's always been to himself and always been so humble that eventually drove him out of the game because he didn't like people telling him how good he was or asking for his autograph. And when you get him in a good setting, he's very entertaining and sociable when he's comfortable and fun to be around. He's just, my history with him here, he's just not that way much with people. He's kind of to himself. But if you get him, and I'm sure he's obviously grown and developed a lot because he's done so many things publicly over the last 30 years that he's learned to do that. But he's always kind of had that side to him where he's always laughing and very entertaining. It was just in a controlled setting.
I know you mentioned that he met the team after a game this season. What's he like as a mentor to the players? How do you see him interacting with them?
Well, I was talking about the time that he walked in the locker room a few weeks ago, and our guys were amazed. And so he won the Heisman Trophy 34 years ago or 5 years ago, something like that, right? 33 years ago. And so the guys that he went in to talk to are 15 years from being born or 12 years from being born, and they knew who he was. And it was a big deal to him. And so I think his presence of not even arguably being the greatest running back to ever play college football, maybe the NFL, I don't even think it's up for debate, it still had an effect on those guys because they have the access to everything with ease. And so they watch all of his old highlights, and they're just amazed by his ability and what he was able to accomplish.
I know you mentioned how excited Jalen Warren was about that. What's it like, especially to see him, a guy who's here from Utah, who's not inspired by Barry Sanders? What does that mean?
Well, it's the reason, at that time I said, hey, you're going to have to come in here and at least meet these running backs. And, he was really like, and no, you got to come in. And then when he got in there, he was awesome. He's right in his world. He's awesome with them. And so it's pretty cool for them to be able to have enough respect for a guy like that. Even though he's from another part of the country, Dominic's from down here in Oklahoma City, but they weren't born when 15 years away from that, so it's still pretty amazing.
We've been asking you for years about when's it going to happen? When's something going to go up to recognize Barry? Is it nice to know that it, for whatever got in the way of that process, it'll be done finally?
Sure. I mean, it's again, he's the greatest running back to ever play college football. And if he would have played 8 more years in the NFL, he'd hold that rushing record too. He just checked it in. And so it's nice that we have his statue up, and it's nice we have Thurman's name up. And then now Barry's is going up, and then we have a statue, and that's really what it should be. If you just think back to the effect that he's had on this athletic department and this university, he deserves what's going to take place on Saturday.
Like you mentioned that Heisman season, I know the game has changed, running backs are managed differently. Do some of those records in a season like that at this point feel untouchable? No one's going to do that again.
It'll be difficult, and I mean, you kind of fall in the category of our players. You're so young. He didn't play in the fourth quarter. He only played in the fourth quarter 2 games. Or he'd have had 3,700 yards rushing. I mean, that's a fact. So I don't know if people can get to that mark anymore. Players don't carry the ball the number of times that it takes to get that many yards, and they don't play as many plays because they rotate in all the time. Back then you didn't rotate, and so I don't know if anybody can catch his numbers. It'd be hard.
If you were playing today, would that force people to change how they use running backs? Would they go back to that time where you want to make sure you got it for at least 25, 30 times a game?
What's interesting is with the style of offense they have now, where coaches know how to spread the field and use the 52 yards wide and get matchups, he'd rush for 4,000 yards a season. He did that playing between the hash marks, 11 on 11 scrums. If we were spread out nowadays, he'd probably rush for 4,000 yards.
You saw is there any, when you think of Barry, is there one run that stands out?
Well, the run he had up in Nebraska when he came in, I can see the run in my eyes because I watched it from behind in the probably late third quarter or something like that, and he made about 9 guys miss on their team. 9's an exaggeration, but it's a good fish story. We'll go with 9. And they were good defense, right? They were really good, and they could tackle and fundamentally sound, and Coach Osborne, and I just went blank on the coordinator. I can see him wearing the glasses. He was there 100 years with him, defense coordinator. I'll think of his name here, I bet you. But anyway, no, Solich was offense. But either way, I can see the run, and that run up there is pretty impressive.
Started with a K.
I can see his face, silver hair, parted over. I'll think of it here. Charlie. No, Charlie McBride. It took somebody with gray hair to figure it out. So. That's right, Charlie McBride. You remember him forever. Yeah. Hey, I'm in the boat. I'm in the same boat. Charlie McBride was the guy forever, the black shirts.
Gained, maybe 12, 13 yards, but he just...
Yeah, made about 6 or 7 people miss, yeah.
To Tay, do you see any similarities between Tay and those former receivers that you talked about?
Let's see. Guys we've had, Tay would be kind of like James Washington in a certain way. James played when defenses were different at this level, so he could get the ball down the field more than what we see. But their style of play is pretty close, I would say.
What about Rashawn?
Tay's a good route runner. Rashawn was a great route runner.
Is he a product, I mean, he talks about how he only had 5 routes at Washington State. Is he a product of kind of being here a year, learning more, or just more opportunity because Colin Wallace is throwing no bad?
Yeah, 2 things. First thing is he was never in shape last year. Came in with COVID. We didn't have off season, and he was never in shape till the bowl game. And then this year he's in shape, and we're obviously a more complex system than what Coach Leach runs. And so he had to learn some more, and that year has given him a chance to understand our concepts.
Mike,
You guys-
I don't want you to give anything away on Barry's statue, but when you're a guy that contorted himself the way he did on the field, how does someone capture that? I mean, I don't know. Is there an iconic part of his game that? Again, I'm not asking.
You talking about just something he did on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I just think about.
So he could stop and start and unfortunately the best highlights for it is when he played with the Lions, because they couldn't. I mean, I'm not trying to get anybody to get mad at me, but they didn't block very well for him. So he would take the ball in the backfield. There's a lot of plays where he's making a cut 2 to 3 yards behind the line, and just literally people melted to the ground, and then he'd get 2 yards, and then he'd make another guy miss, and he'd get 10 yards, and it was most people would have been -4. He did that consistently. That's what he could do that differently than anybody that's ever played the game.
Dave just said it. What was your view of the Colorado dive?
Oh, the dive. I was going to bring that up a second ago, but you asked me the best run. I didn't want to go for 2, but the picture in Sports Illustrated, he's probably, I don't know, this high, flat, and went over on the goal line. It's pretty cool. But he could windmill dunk too, basketball. Over here in the Colvin Center, he used to go over there and windmill dunk. 5'7".
He played Northwalk South, what's up, wide open city. He's one of the Lions. He played pickup, guys. Lane Ponce knew he would have had a heart attack.
Are you talking about when he was playing pickup basketball?
Yeah, pickup.
He used to do it here all the time. It made me nervous.
He passed out. They're about killing himself on a lot of shots.
Right. We could get into long stories about him, but he would have preferred to play basketball over football. He loved basketball. He was over here at the Colvin Center all the time. And so being down there and playing he loves basketball. So.
The fact that he was back for the reunion weekend and now for this, and I know it at least outwardly appears like he's back maybe every year or 2.
Back here?
Yeah, coming back here. Do you get the sense and maybe you guys are doing more in terms of outreach, not only with Barry but with other guys. I don't know. What have you sensed in that regard with him?
I think he likes coming back here. He still has family around and stuff. Barry's just hard to get to pin down to do anything. And I know that he likes being here because once he gets here and gets around the people, he enjoys that. And it's very important for us to continue to pursue him to do that. I mean, he's an iconic figure, and he always will be. So I would say, I don't know this to be true one way or the other. I would say that people have pursued him for 20 years to come back. He just is kind of hard to pin him down to get him on an airplane to get him back. But once he gets here, he does great.
Do you sense like you've maybe taken some steps to be not just better with maybe getting him here, but, you know, like you did the reunion for the 10-year anniversary and stuff like that? Does that seem like a thing that's happening with more regularity that maybe you
Here?
like? Yeah, outreach to the player alone.
So I know that I have been a strong advocate of returning players here, and Oklahoma State has not been effective and not done a good job with football lettermans. We just haven't done a good job. Call it the way it is. Chad Weiberg is very interested, and Reed are very interested in rejuvenating that, and we've somewhat started that process. Chad's been at all the functions we've had, telling former players, look, this is what we're going to do for you. There's just a lot to get accomplished, but it's moving that direction. And so once these things start being put in place, then players like him whose buddies are here and they can come back and see guys that he played with, which he likes to do that, then you have a chance to get those guys to come back more. And we're in the process of that right now. We're going to work hard, and I fully expect within a year, probably more reasonably in 2 years, to have a plan in place that really gets former players back considerably, and particularly on game day.
I know you've got a lot going on, obviously, in the middle of the season, but did you have any reaction to the NCAA's decision on the basketball team?
I thought it was unfair. I don't know the details of it. You know, it's hard for me to comment on anything, but I just thought it was unfair.
What? Your defense, you were good last year, but you're better this year. You had some injuries. Trace Moore had played for you. You had different guys out. Trace Owens gone. Why are you better this year compared to last year?
Experience and a number of players who've played in games and been in close situations and understand how to practice during the week, and preparation and maturity. That's what's helped this group.
You said you were surprised how they're surprising you. You think they'd be this good? Because Jim Nolan back in the spring said top 10. They got a lot of people's attention.
He did what?
He said that they could be top 10 in defense. Back in the
When did he say that?
During one of his post-game
I'm not saying he didn't. That scares me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. He said it's going to be top 10. So,
he needs to go to Vegas. Pull the slot machine. If I wouldn't have, when somebody asked me a question in Morgantown after the game, and if I would have said no, I wasn't surprised that we could sack them 8 times and keep number 4, or them have, I don't know what the rushing yards were, 17 yards. I was surprised. I knew that we could play good, but I didn't think we'd play that good. I mean, I'd be honest with you. It's nothing against the players that's a pretty good game, especially a team that's been rolling pretty good offensively the last couple of weeks.
Does it make it even more impressive that this is happening this late in the season, usually where you start seeing wear and tear on both sides of the ball, and here they are, maybe best they've been all year?
We've been fortunate that we're playing so many guys on defense that their reps have been cut by 40%. So most of our guys that are playing in the front 7 are 40% less than what they have been over the last 6 or 8 years.
I think you mentioned this to Dave last week about the team being close to peaking. What areas still need to improve for that to happen?
Well, we have to rush the football every week and give ourselves a chance to throw the ball. And if you don't rush the football, you can't throw it. And for us, that's what we have to be able to accomplish. There's no secret there. So we have to continue to work hard at rushing the football, and then be effective in the shots and stuff that we take throwing the football. We have to be effective in those areas. And so we're not a methodical 10 to 12 play drive score team. That's really not who we are in offense. So we have to rush the ball well enough to pop guys through and then we have to be effective on getting some plays to get some chunk yards to give us a chance to have some 5 to 7 play drives. That's really who we are offensively at this time.
How concerned have you been with penalties? I think you had just the one against Kansas, but then other games I think you're averaging a little over 7. Has that been a concern to you guys?
I always look at that, and like we had I think 55 yards in Morgantown, and one of them, Rucker hit a guy late at the end of the game, and he would tell you it wasn't smart. So if you take that away, you're at 40. I think it would have been 4 or 5 penalties at 40. But at Iowa State, they hurt us. That's what I said in here the next, maybe after the game or next Monday or whatever. But we hurt ourselves at Iowa State because we started too many drives in long yardage or ended up in long yardage based on penalties. And we talk about it and we work hard and we're getting a little better at it. But what you're saying is right. We need to minimize those and not give away free yards and penalties and be more disciplined in that area.
When you talk about a guy like,
Sorry.
when you talk about a guy like Tay Martin or the progress he's made since he's been here, Jalen Warren, you got the offensive lineman, a couple offensive linemen who are transfers. Is there something unique about what you guys do and how you handle transfers that allows them to succeed here? Because you've had success with guys going way back to the...
We've been very fortunate with transfers, and graduate transfers is how this all started, and then portal transfers. I would have to say that we have an advantage because I've been here going on 18 years now, and so our culture and our system and everything's in place, so we can fit a young man in, transfer, or a high school player, like Colin Oliver. Most guys that are in his position shouldn't be able to have as much success as he's had as a true freshman. But I think the system that we have in place, because it's been going on now for 18 years, or going on 18 years, allows a young man to come in and kind of get right in line, and he's not lost. There's most everything we do over here is pretty detailed to the second of the day. We know we're a year in advance on our calendars over in our building. And so everything we do every day is to a detail. And so a young man doesn't get lost. He knows this is what I'm supposed to do. Now I'm here. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm in academics. This is what I do. And so I think that allows him to get into the flow really easy.
And does that also play into the fact that you're finding guys who are mature and can fit that?
Just recently, Coach Bradford and his staff have done a great job with that. And it's interesting you bring that up because we talked about that just recently as a staff. You have to, our opinion, you have to evaluate a talent level, and can that talent level help you based on the position, because it's different, right, depending on what the position is. And then, why is he transferring? You have to know that, so you know what you're dealing with when you get them. Just like when they choose to come to us, they need to know who we are. This is the culture we have. This is who we are. So if you're looking to go somewhere and play athletically, are you good enough? Okay, you're good enough. But are you going to fit into our culture and do what we do? If you're not, you shouldn't come here. It's not good for you or us. So there's 2 ways to look at that. You need to fit into our culture, and then we need you to be in a position that you're going to come in, buy into the system, then you'll have everything you need to be successful. That's what we've used. That's the philosophy we've had.
We talked earlier about teams playing inspired football, and looking on the schedule, 2 of the 3 teams remaining, they fired their coaches. Is that something that can maybe inspire a team playing for an interim head coach? Or
I mean, with young people nowadays, I don't know. Obviously, it helped them last week. If you can watch the tape or go DVR the game or whatever and watch them play, and they played very inspired football. They're still athletic. They still run. They're fast on defense. They have running backs. Wideouts can make plays. I mean, so there's been games they've lost, and you look at it, and there's like 6 or 8 plays that made a huge difference in their games. Otherwise, the meat of what they've done, they're pretty competitive.
One more. Go ahead, Hallie.
No, go.
You go ahead.
Yeah, you've been waiting over there.
Doug Jackson had his first carry since the Tulsa game. At what point do you see him at right now, and how do you see his involvement increasing, or what point is he at right now?
He's up and running. We're pretty pleased with him now. He practiced last week, full speed. The week before he was about 90%, but I feel good about where he's at now, and we have him there, and we feel like that if he carries the ball, he's going to do just fine.
I don't know the relationship you have with Mike Boynton, but do you get a message to him last week as they're going through that?
I didn't. I felt so bad that I didn't talk to anybody about it. I just didn't know. I don't know what you say. I mean, that's hard for your players, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not. I don't know what. I'm not a basketball guy, but I still coach young people, so I just have stayed out of the whole deal. I didn't like the way it was handled, but it's none of my business. So.
Mike, you guys are doing the blackout for the fans on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out now a night game, a primetime game. Having good attendance, I know it's important for you guys on an individual level for the atmosphere and all that, but as you think about the Big 12 moving forward, it's going to be a different group of teams in a few years. At some point, there's going to be a new grant of rights that has to be done. Do you feel like having these good environments and lively stadiums, is that important to the Big 12 brand?
Yeah, that. Some of that is what you're talking about is what I was talking about when not adjusting and changing college football. So, like if you go back and do a little research on NASCAR and where NASCAR was 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, and then where NASCAR is now, and the environment that we have here with tailgating, like when I leave here on a Thursday night after practice and everything and go through campus to go home, there's already tents set up. There's 30,000 people on campus now. When I drive to pregame meal and it's packed, and the crowd, and that is what's driving college football. And as long as we can continue that, we're in good shape. We have to be careful that we don't get off track and make decisions that affect the actual hands-on approach of the game. And so what you're talking about is still very important, that the festive atmosphere that you have in college football is what people want. That's what people want to do. I mean, it's just like, when you drive at Morgantown last week, we come in and get off the highway. You drive on a little 2-lane road. It's hilly, and you go up and you go through the campus. And West Virginia, the cars are going to be parked on the side of the road. That's where they park. And then there's people walking up and down the streets, and then you know what you're going to get. They have a history and a tradition there, and it makes it part of college football. We have to keep that intact if we want to keep the game the way it is. And those things are very important. Fortunately, here we've had that. I'm all for the striped stadium. I'm for the T-shirts, whatever color we want to wear. The most traditional best look for me ever is the pom-poms. I love the pom-poms. 60,000 people doing this during a game. I think that's awesome. Those things we need to be careful that we don't lose. That part of college football is what